Hello, my name is Jeff Rolka. I want to welcome you to this week's live event. This is your live event number 63, where we chit-chat, and those of you there that are in the chat talk amongst yourselves and trade anecdotes. I answer questions and do demonstrations as best I can on a coffee-fueled Saturday morning here in sunny California. I know it's labeled as 6 p.m. London time. It's sort of a nod to the time that I spent in England for the past 4 years. Until recently. Hello, Keenan. Welcome. I don't know if I recognize your user ID. Thank you for joining us this morning. We're getting off to a quiet start, so if you have any questions, please do throw them out there. If you've subscribed, thank you. If you haven't yet, I hope that you will consider doing so now. If you want a step-by-step method to work on your voice, you can go to jeffrolka.com, where you can also find ways to support me in the efforts to teach the world to sing sustainably and healthily for as long as they wish to. Hello, Satwik Sanj. Hey, welcome. Welcome to this week's live event. Yeah, that's about it. I recently became an Amazon affiliate, and I haven't really figured out how to work it out yet. Ronaldo, thank you. I appreciate that. I recently resurrected this shirt out of the depths of my wardrobe. It was crumpled and tucked away down there. It's still fairly crumpled. I've never seen the point in ironing things. Jennifer, good morning to you as well. Thank you for joining us. Brian, hey, thank you. Thank you for being a big fan. I was wondering if there are exercises you recommend for strengthening your melismas. There's two aspects to melismatic singing, or melismas. I think they're both equally important. Pardon me. One is purely technical, or I should say objectively physical in nature, which is continuity of airflow. So if you are one where in your singing of things you tend to articulate each individual pitch, he, even without intending to. So if I said, all right, I want you to sing this, but instead you sang without intending to, where there's kind of a bump on each of those pitches, that can be an airflow issue, or can also be a conceptual issue in how you're thinking about the phrase. We have to both think about the melismas as being connected and really, really looking forward to the next pitch we're going to. So as you're singing that's just a 5-note scale, really be thinking about try to imagine that next note before you get to it. And that will help you make those connections. And I think that, honestly, it really helps with the physicalities of continuity of airflow as well. The Lip Trill Madness video is a kind of good overall, overarching way to practice airflow and be able to check yourself, because if the lips stop or if they pulse, you know that you're pulsing your airflow. In truth, the vast majority of the exercises on my YouTube channel are all melismatic in nature, and they are as effective at practice as any other thing you could do, but you want to draw your attention to those two elements. Am I thinking about the next note and thinking about the conscious connection I'm going to make to it? And am I also really engaged in keeping the air moving through that? Great question. Thank you. Thank you. Hello, Fred. Ara. Good morning. Nice to see you too. Thank you for popping up. Jacob. Hey, Jeff. Thank you for the warm-ups. They have helped me to reach the F sharp and G above middle C. Brilliant. Well done. Well done. Good on you. Hopefully, I assume, Jacob, that is with the transition through the secondo passaggio. Please let me know if that is in fact the case. Brian, good morning to you as well. Satwik. Jeff, just wanted to ask, no matter how hard I try, my larynx does not get neutral. It moves to the top while singing high notes, cutting off the breath support, and then my voice just cracks. That's understandable. What I would suggest is, first and foremost, slow down a little bit. If you're trying to sing solid vowels or anything like that, and you're not able to stabilize the larynx, work on descending scales with a lip trill, and then work on short pitches with an oo vowel. The oo vowel typically is easier to keep a neutral to lowered larynx position. And I would suggest you try to identify as best you can the secondo passaggio and skip over it. So octave arpeggios are really, really good for this. My secondo passaggio is about there, right? So I start above it, and the next note of an octave descending arpeggio is below it. And if I sing you, it gives me a little bit of a space on both sides of the secondo passaggio. It makes it easier for me to adjust from a cricothyroid dominant singing position to a thyroarytenoid dominant singing position. There's time for the vocal fold to adjust. Over time, we narrow that so that we're eventually singing stepwise or scale-wise patterns across the secondo passaggio, and then we start to really match tone. And the lip trill can also help with this too. Doing that same pattern with the lip trill will be helpful. And just kind of going from there, but be patient. You have to listen really carefully, and you have to really, really get a good sense of where the secondo passaggio is. Good morning, Natasha. Hello, although I think it's evening where you are. Good morning, Brian. Let me see if I missed anybody here. Steven. Aloha! From Hawaii, I'm a baritone and request exercises for strengthening the lower half of my chest voice. Is there a break for men as they proceed into the very lowest? In fact, there is, in fact. Although most of us don't notice it. You'll notice the language around the ranges. Like when I talk about the different areas of the parts of our voice, I usually say thyroarytenoid dominant, cricothyroid dominant, which is to say it's not entirely cricothyroid, nor is it entirely thyroarytenoid. So the unspoken thing there is that when you're singing in your thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice, there is still some amount of cricothyroid activity. And the point at which that ceases is that lower transition. Most of us don't, it can, if you notice it, it tends to be on the clunky side of things, and I suspect that's what's happening to you. And I will absolutely do some low range exercises. I generally neglect that because 99% of my time is spent teaching people to sing over the secondo passaggio. But I will happily do that. There are a few out there on the channel, but not a lot. And I will do that. Thank you for the suggestion. That's a great suggestion. Aloha. Jennifer, my 3-year-old nephew loves music, taking drum lessons. Fantastic. He's watching with me as we speak. Fantastic. Can he get a shout? His name is Joseph. Thank you. Love your videos. Jennifer. Joseph. Thank you. I don't know where you're watching from, but Joseph, keep on taking those drum lessons. Whether you realize it or not, studying drums is the underpinning of everything we do. Rhythm and the study of rhythm in music is absolutely crucial to being an effective musician. So if you think about it, or I should say, think about it this way. If you are playing or singing a note, but you're doing it at the wrong time, it's the wrong note. We've got to be in the right place at the right time. Rhythm is crucial, and I hope that you're enjoying those drums. Take care, Joseph. Mandy, hello. Mandy, I was wondering, if I could nominate you, if you're going to be around for most of our time here today, if I could nominate you as a moderator today, in case somebody decides to go crazy with the spamola. If you just give me a quick nod there, I'll keep an eye out for it on the bottom of the chat. I can do it from my end, and it'll only take a second. And that would be incredibly helpful. I'd really appreciate it. MP3CIC, so happy to find you. As recovering from stroke, and I helped you get back. Thank you. Gosh. I don't know what to say. You're welcome. Thank you for watching, and I am absolutely thrilled that what we've been doing here on the channel is helping you recover. I wish you only the best in your recovery, and I hope it just gets better and better. And I am humbled by the fact that what we're doing here on the channel is helping. That's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Mandy, you don't have to do anything. I am just going to do this. And now, Mandy, you are a moderator on the channel here. You should get a little crown next to your user ID next time you comment. And if you see someone that's posting in the chat questionable material, like if they're using bad words or if they're saying mean things or basically anything at all that you think is questionable, just the little dots on the far right side of the channel, there's some little dots there. You can click on those and it'll give you a list of options and block them. Just block them, because I really, really want this environment to be helpful and good and friendly to all the people that are here, and that would be very helpful. Thank you. Stryker, good day to you. Altug, hello. Gerald Ryan, welcome, Gerald Ryan. In the middle of the night there. The dark, by candlelight, sitting around, listening intently. Obviously, that's probably far from the reality of things, but it's fun to imagine these things. Welcome, Gerald Ryan. Thank you for joining us. Karina, good evening, everybody. Hello. Hello to you. Altug, how do we sing the word lips? The PS part is the issue. I feel like my lips are exploding. That's a good one. Lips. I suppose, the amount of airflow will vary depending on where you are in your range. Of course, I sang that in a very comfortable part of my range. If I were higher up, the PS would be much more difficult. I suppose it does depend a little bit on what comes afterwards. Like if you were singing lips to kiss, lips to kiss, I'm like compacting that PS so much so it's almost non-existent. What I find more interesting about this is the shape of the vowel as we get higher up. It becomes much more like lips to kiss. The T isn't helping me either. And what I'm trying to do is put that PS and the T as close together as I possibly can. Pardon me. Lips to kiss, lips to kiss. Excuse me. And going farther and farther with that. PS is tough. That's a good one, Altug. That's a really, really good one. Karina, I like the O vowel. That is a nice vowel. That's sort of the rearward focusing equivalent of A. Not too wide, but not too narrow. Reasonably comfortable to sing in general. Excellent. Jacob, I really have no clue about it going through the passaggio you told me earlier. Well, try to clue into that. That's the thing. Yes, just remove spammy messages. That's all, Mandy. Thank you. And if nothing happens, then don't even worry about it. Oh, I guess you don't get a crown. You just get a wrench. Wrench is cool, though. Wrench is cool. Yeah. So anyways, Jacob, going through the passaggio you told me earlier. Yeah. We've got to know that's really, really important, because if you're using your belting voice, so you're compressing the thyroarytenoid muscles to get to those F sharps and Gs, then that's one way to do it, to sing those notes. But we ideally want to be able to do both. We want to be able to make a smooth transition through the secondo passaggio so that we get a nice seamless connection into our cricothyroid dominant singing voice. And that opens up even more range, up well above the G. So yeah, try to see if you can notice that. Mandy, when working on a passage that's pretty high between secondo passaggio and falsetto, yes, you are saying that right. Thank you. Though technically speaking, in female vocalists, we would refer to the upper part as flageolet. I realize, but fairly synonymous. Falsetto and flageolet are used synonymously. They really ought not to be, but people understand falsetto. And so it is commonly used, and you are using it, you are referencing the correct ranges in your usage here. I realize I can hit the notes fine at relatively low volume, but I can't project. Yes, okay, so when we are new to technique where we are making the transition from thyroarytenoid dominant singing to cricothyroid dominant singing, the sensation of balance in cricothyroid dominant voice typically means that we're going to be a little bit less for a while. As the cricothyroid muscles develop, and as the coordination in the handoff between thyroarytenoid and cricothyroid develops, and as you gain more confidence and aptitude in understanding the subglottic, or I should say airflow, subglottic pressure requirements of that range of your voice, then you will develop more resonance and subsequently more volume for those notes that are there in that range of your voice. That's an awful lot of voice teacher talk. The short answer to that is that the cricothyroid muscles, the head voice muscles, need to develop in strength and in coordination. And as they do, then your voice will gain both in matching your chest voice and in the volume as well. Any tips for building volume for those kinds of notes? I think I kind of just did that. Karina, do you have match pitch exercises? Just curious. Karina, not really on the YouTube channel. The closest thing that I have to that would be in the beginners playlist, and I think it's called I'd have to look up what it's called, honestly. It's like beginners singing lessons. It's meant to be a very fundamental kind of foundational, very very much for the new singer or those who are recovering or struggling from things. And in that video, I start off with just open perfect fifth exercises. In my experience, I have found that to be more effective in getting new vocalists or vocalists who have had an extremely long period of time away from vocal instruction, getting them going quickly. Sometimes I find that just playing a single solitary note and asking them to match that pitch is relatively difficult for the new vocalist, and doesn't always go very quickly. There isn't a lot of observable growth at a reasonable time frame. But when I make it a perfect fifth or a perfect fourth, think about the tonic. Your tonic of any given key, the fifth above or the same note is a perfect fourth below. And so what I start off by doing is trying to start to develop their ability to hear those differences in those pitches. And that new acuity of listening then enables the new vocalist to match the pitch more carefully. So in the very, very earliest stages of my teaching, it is equal parts airflow exercises, which are done without pitch, and kind of some oral skills. But that may not be exactly what you're meaning in terms of your question. So please feel free to chime in. Jacob, also, I'm baritone. So if you're, tenor and choir, and when I warm up in tenor, I feel like my voice is too deep to reach them. Yeah, it probably is. I mean, if you're truly a baritone, then those F sharps and Gs really better be above the secondo passaggio. I think that was you. Yes, secondo passaggio. Otherwise, you're really straining those out. That gets to be a major second to a minor third above the secondo passaggio for the typical baritone voice. And that's the minor third especially is really on the outskirts of what I feel is a healthy range to belt to on a regular, recurring basis. Once in a while, whatever, that's fine. But on a regular basis, I feel that you're going to start to encounter vocal fatigue rather quickly that way. Kevin O'Brien, hello to you. Mandy, could you give us some tips for beginning to develop rich tone? As much as is possible. The best thing you can do in terms of developing tone is to focus on airflow and release of the vocal fold mechanism. I haven't mentioned this in a while, but there's a really, really amazing article that was done. I think it was done in 2006, so there's probably some new research about it. But it was done in Scientific American, and it's called, it's like the voice or the vocal instrument, the human instrument, the vocal instrument as a nonlinear occurrence. And what it discusses is how the vibrations that are created at the vocal fold in turn are resonated, the resonant frequencies that you create are reflected in the soft tissues of the oral cavity, and that is what is creating the big voluminous rich sounds that you hear in like the operatic voice. So as a popular musician, you may not necessarily want to go entirely in that direction, but those techniques still apply to us. And by learning to cultivate that kind of release and balanced phonation, balanced singing, we get the resonance and power that we're seeking. When we try to push, that's when we ultimately find that we get into this self-defeating cycle where we push and strain, and the vocal fold pushes back, and we strain some more, and it goes on and on like that. And what we're doing is we're dampening down those soft tissues, losing resonance, usually also going flat in pitch as well. So, really, the entire channel is kind of devoted to that. That's what it's all about. The sequences of vowels in the quote-unquote warm-up videos are done specifically to try to help the vocalist using the video have the appropriate amount of balance of phonation, and then I change the vowels and usually include the instruction of keep your voice sounding the same. We want to try to keep things sounding the same as much as possible across the different changes of vowels. And what we're learning to do here is to maintain resonance and phonation and balanced phonation across all these different vowel sounds. That's how we develop power. Stryker Kane, he is 3, right? Deep advice. Yeah, well, I mean, he's 3. That's fine. Joseph, don't listen to Stryker. You just do what you gotta do. It's all good. I know Stryker is making fun of me. But, yeah, I know he was 3, but I couldn't help myself. I feel very strongly about rhythm. Mandy, yes, sure. What do I have to do? Oh, we're already did all that. Hola to Kevin, Mandy, yes. Karina Chen, cool, thanks. Mandy, not a problem. Kevin O'Brien, at Stryker Kane. Mandy Cummins, I'm going to refresh my page just in case. Cool. Karina Chen, true, we are a lovely community. I agree. I'm way behind already. Jeez. Natasha, if you learn piano, in what way will it help a person with singing or any instruments in that case? Well, piano is like the foundation of everything. The music notation system and the music theory system that we still use today for Western tonal music is, in many respects, built into piano techniques. So if you're learning piano, you're learning music theory at the same time. And I think that familiarizing oneself with the notes and the ranges, and if you sing along with yourself at the piano and play your scales and sing along matching pitch directly, you really get a great sense of where your voice is on the piano. This helps with learning songs, with writing songs, with everything. I mean, piano is an incredible foundation. I wish, pardon me, I wish I would have come to the piano much, much sooner in my musical life. It was when I began to study piano that many of the music theory concepts that that I had studied in university started to make much more sense. It's not even that they made sense. It's just like, oh, of course it should be that way. It is just easily grokked, I guess is the way of saying that. Gerald Ryan is 1:12 a.m. here. Awesome. Altug, lips as the last word in a phrase and on a long note. Okay, Altug. Well, in that case, hang on your vowel, right? Lips. And the ps, I almost feel like I'm kind of swallowing the P. Lips. And that's how I would end it. So it's not so much what we want to try. We want to try to avoid a rearticulation of the PS. Lips. We don't want to do that. Just basically close the lips down and start to take your breath. Do your expansion so that you avoid the plosive that's at the end of that. Gold Star Sheep. Welcome. I don't recall that user ID. Carl. How do the African choirs achieve their sound? Is it on the voice or the harmonies in the music? Wales. I'm not Carl, but I'm not sure if you're addressing Carl. I'd have to listen to the choirs that you are referring to. I'm thinking of Blacksmith Lady Bombazo just off the top of my head, and I don't know how much they are truly African. But African musical genres typically involve a lot of unison and singing at the octave, as well as harmonies thrown in. They are often of the typical varieties of thirds and sixths. One of the things that you will find that is incredibly amazing in African music are both the existence of polyrhythms and composite rhythms. So you will have, I'm speaking now of drums, but it exists in vocal music as well, where you have a variety of different sounding drums, and they're all playing a different rhythm. And then there's another drum doing, I'd have to write the rhythms out to really get it right, but let's just say you had one rhythm going for the sake of simplicity, and the other rhythm is going, and what you get when you put them together is, right, one's on the downbeat, one's on the offbeat. And those things are all integrated into those musical disciplines, and they create, you're absolutely right, stunning sounds. Kevin, how can I control my pitch and air? That's a very, very large question. One, you know, back it up, air. Proper engagement, posture, and expansion are of great help in getting good airflow and consistent airflow. If those things are not stable and they're not being done properly, then you're not just going to struggle with air, you're going to struggle with pitch. The pitch comes out of the airflow, so focus on your airflow first. Try as best you can to assess and resolve those issues, and then start concerning yourself more with the pitch. I'm not suggesting you shouldn't sing notes until you think your airflow is idealized. Far from it. What I am saying, however, is focus primarily on your airflow, your posture, and your engagement, allowing yourself a bit of a pass on the pitch and the notes for a while. Let's just say you're getting close, for starters here. As your overall technique continues to increase, then your awareness and acuity of pitch discrepancies will increase as well, and you will be capable of being more carefully in tune, or being on pitch, as it were. But I think oftentimes it's easy to say, you know, like, I sing out of tune. Why can't I sing in tune? I want to sing in tune. Well, if you cannot hear things if you cannot tell the difference between pitches, or you have hearing acuity, you haven't developed it that much. You can develop that, but if you don't develop your airflow and ability to control the vocal mechanism, you're still not going to be able to sing in tune. These things they have to grow hand in hand. They don't have to, but I think that they are best explored hand in hand. So little by little, as your airflow stabilizes, so will your ability to be pretty close to the pitches. And that will then reinforce more learning in airflow, and that will make your pitches get better, and so on and so forth. Until you're really, really quite nicely in tune. Natasha, I can't say R like long er. Can that affect any singing? More your enunciation than anything else. The lack of that particular consonant will mean that certain words might sound a little bit different for you than someone else. But quite frankly, singing into that R sound or singing into the diphthong is something that mostly I spend my time having people learn how to avoid. So you may, in fact, have a little bit of an advantage here that you were previously unaware of. Stryker at Altug. Mandy, I think in those long words, the stress should be on the vowels, and the consonants will be short at the end of the word. Yes, indeed, Mandy. I believe you're addressing Altug. Greg, how do I go about working on breath support? How do I evaluate breath support, and what things should I work on to improve it? Well, you can certainly look at my demonstration video on how breath support goes through the different ranges, and I would check out the Octavio breath management video. You can work on it using the diaphragmatic warm-up, but that doesn't mean that we're not really working on it when we're singing our other stuff. We're still working on it. I'm just not necessarily pointing it out in the video. The short note, short breath exercises are both coordination as well as airflow related in nature. Coordination is an aspect of airflow. Can you be more specific, Greg? What's going on? Can you tell me more? Tell me more. Satwik, one more question. How can I reset my muscle memory? Like, I have adapted this habit of straining my neck muscles for singing. Yeah. Okay, so there is a book that was published. I think it's been actually quite a bit longer now that I realize. But anyways, it was called This Is Your Brain on Music. It's the neuroscience behind music. And it applies, I think, quite nicely to us as vocalists. Perhaps doubly so, since our instruments are our bodies. And the short answer to your question is that habit is in fact a protein neural pathway embedded in your brain. And you cannot remove it by will alone. Okay? What you have to do in order to retrain, there's no undoing it, there's no relearning it, that neural pathway exists. What has to be done is you have to supplant it with something else so that your brain, what it literally does is, like, let's just say, like, you know, God, I need like more illustrative devices here. Let's say this is the neural pathway, and here's the part where you strain your neck. Okay. Now, when you do that, your brain overlays it and reinforces it with more protein. What you need to do is put a different thing there that circumvents it, that goes over the top of it. Okay? So maybe that's twisting your head like this gently. Maybe it's doing that. Maybe it's doing that. Maybe it's something, whatever. Okay? But you have to put something else so that your brain creates a different neural pathway over the existing one. And what happens is that over time, the new neural pathway is reinforced and the old one atrophies and eventually gets reabsorbed into the gray matter. It will eventually go away, but you can't just force it away right now. It has to be circumvented and then allowed to go into disuse over a long period of time. So, you know, for neck muscle stuff, I often advise people to stay in motion. So just in like, this is a very, very small motion, but it needs to be perpetual and it needs to be gentle, and it must be absolutely arrhythmical to everything that you're singing and breathing. So if I'm singing my scales, It's going when you're breathing, it's going with your singing, and you're just going to keep it going. You're going to keep it going. You got to keep it going. And it won't really take that long, but in a short period of time, you will have a different habit. And that habit of release will be much easier to calm down so that you have just nice released muscles. And I approach most of my vocal instruction this way. This thought, that concept, is embedded in virtually everything that I do on this channel. The idea that we're not going to undo something. We're going to do something different that is going to be healthy and sustainable and help us achieve our goals. That's what I think about when I'm making my videos and making my exercises. Octavio, secondo passaggio. Mandy, so in other words, practice, practice, practice. Thank you, Jeff. That was helpful. Let me know I'm doing it basically right. Good. Yes, you are. Yes, and practice well. I know that you meant that, but yes, we must practice well too. Octavio, my throat tightens up when warming up. How to avoid this? Stay in a very comfortable range. Stay in, maybe take a little bit more time in the easy thyroarytenoid dominant range of your voice and really listen carefully for consistency of vowels. So you want to make sure that your tone is matching as closely as it possibly can, and then start to move into the other parts of your range. If you cannot do that, then spend more time there and focus on groups of vowels, E, A, A, and U and O. Take them in parts and then start to put them together. Stryker at Altug. Sir Marcus. Hi, Jeff. I can navigate my secondo passaggio, but when I get up around E5, I have to sing loudly and can't go any higher. How can I break into those higher squeaky notes? That is a very good question. At some point, when you get I'm assuming you're a tenor. At some point, what has to happen is that the epiglottis needs to start to close down over the larynx in order to create the whistle aperture that gets you the whistle tones. Beyond that, honestly, I cannot say. As much as I've tried to learn about whistle tone technique, there isn't a whole lot that's available on it. And because the epiglottis covers the vocal fold, it's really difficult to know what's happening in there. But that is part of it. Aaron, good afternoon, and good afternoon to you. I'm about to head over to a wedding, but I wanted to stop by and say hello. Thanks for your amazing videos. You're truly one of a kind. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And have fun at the wedding. Asmita, hey Jeff, do you have any tips to develop agility without straining? Love from Texas. Hello there in Texas. Yes, I think there's a whole agility playlist on the channel. But if you're feeling strain, realize that agility and straining are polar opposites of they're just not gonna work very well together. If you want to develop agility, then what you're really saying is you want to develop excellent subglottic pressure, which is support or airflow, as is commonly said, and you want to have as balanced phonation as possible throughout all the different ranges of your voice. Everything on this channel is about that. This is all about becoming balanced in our phonation and sustainable. Take it in turns. Focus on your engagement. Focus then on the alignment of your vowels. The agility exercises are fast. If they're too fast, go over to the video that's labeled fast and slow. I created a playlist for this as well. This will help you slowly bring these exercises up to speed. So what you're going to do is you're going to work on this. We've got like a three-pronged assault here, okay? We're going to focus on airflow. So maybe do the diaphragmatic breathing warm-up or do the lip trill madness video. We've got alignment. Do the E-A-Ah video and do the U and the O video. Do them back to back. And and then maybe do like the general warm up, because that's going to do all 5 of those vowels, and then hit the I lost my train of thought. Bring it back. Fast and slow video. And in that video, you're going to take the concepts and the balance that you've been working on here and try to maintain it. You want to maintain that balanced, aligned, well-engaged feeling when you're going slow, and then as the tempi increase. And that balanced position is going to offer you the absolute most freedom and agility. As an old director, many, many years ago, was very fond of saying, if you want to go fast, you got to be light. And he was a trumpet player in the Detroit Symphony Orchestra. Brilliant musician, amazing jazz musician as well. And that dude was fast. I'm fast too. That dude was fast. Okay. I'm feeling so silly today. I'm just like, I've got this like total goofball vibe going on. I don't know what's going on here. Thank you, Stryker. I appreciate that. Damn olives. Hey, Damon here. I love your videos and they help. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much. Bhavya, I have a lot of tongue tension. What should I do? Do the tongue tension video. Stick it out. And I'm not sure if it was today, but there's another tongue tension video coming out either this week or maybe it's next week. But that's going to come out too, and you can go into that. And in that video, I go through a lot more of the theory on how to defeat tongue tension. So I talk more than I do in most of my videos, but that'll help too. David, do you have some ideas as to why classical style singers sing once or twice a week, but more popular style singers sing so much more often? Just wondering. Well, okay, so perhaps I'm on the wrong, out of touch here, but most of the classical musicians that I know sing a lot more than once or twice a week. Not necessarily performing, but certainly practicing. Popular musicians tend to gig a lot more, probably because there's just that much more demand for it. I think I mentioned this, so I did my newsletter like last week or something like that, and I mentioned this in the newsletter. There's a real discrepancy in vocal instruction versus vocal work. Something like more than 90% of all university-level vocal instruction is done in the classical genres. But more than 90% of all available vocal work is in the commercial sector, popular music. And that's where like I'm trying to come in. I'm trying to, I do teach a lot of classical vocal instruction. Because all the techniques that I'm teaching on this channel are derived from bel canto technique as taught by Richard Miller and people who have studied in that discipline that I have taken lessons with. But the fact is that the vast majority of us out there are singing popular music, but there isn't, well, of course opinions on this vary, but the technique for popular music singing up to this point has left out a lot of things that I think are very important and enable us to get the most out of our voices. And so that's a lot of what I'm trying to do, is to bridge this gap of instruction. Damn olives. I have 2 questions, but I don't want to be greedy. No worries. So I'll just ask one now. Okay. What are your thoughts on belting in musical theater when it comes to male voices? I think there's a lot of contention around this. I think belting, honestly, is largely unnecessary when we have good technique. I think that people belt primarily because it doesn't require the development of coordination between thyroarytenoid and cricothyroid dominant singing muscles around the secondo passaggio. There are lots of anecdotes about very famous musical theater. I'm thinking of one in particular. It was a female vocalist who was quoted as saying something to the effect of, I always do the transition to the secondo passaggio, but everyone thinks I'm belting. My main thing is like, it's a part of our, it's a tool in the tool chest. And if you want a belt, that's cool. There is a certain quality to the voice when you force the thyroarytenoid muscles to do what belting requires, and that can be desirable from time to time. My recommendation is that you not exceed a major second over your secondo passaggio, so that you can avoid any undue or extreme vocal fatigue or strain that would require you to take a lot of time off, or miss performances or miss rehearsals or things like that. How do opera singers, Natasha, how do opera singers become opera singers? Are they born that way? Okay. Practice, attention to detail, careful instruction, careful observation, careful, appropriate practice. And that being said, there are many opera singers that, cut their careers short by not really having as great a technique as they could. We're all born a certain way, and it is, I think, reasonable to suggest that a certain percentage of the population is born with a certain pliance in the soft tissue of their oral cavity, and their vocal folds are a particular length, which is particularly advantageous to certain opera fox like vocal ranges, and they happen to fall into those positions. But my favorite example is Pavarotti, who got singing lessons every day from the age of 5. How do you sift talent from instruction and time and expertise? If you've been doing something for 30 years every single day. Now, is it possible that Pavarotti also had a particularly shaped oral cavity, and it was particularly well suited to his vocal fosh and his range and all that? Yeah, sure, that's all possible. But I don't know how we would ever know that unless you undid it. If you could go back in time, pull him out of that school, and make him wait until he was 18 and then start teaching him to sing and seeing if all of a sudden it just erupted out of him. We'll never know. Given time or talent, I'll take time every single time over talent, period. And I did a video on talent ages and ages ago, which I didn't do a very good job on, I think, because I didn't really communicate my point very well, which is the daily practice and the daily discipline of what it is to be a musician. And I don't mean just singing your songs. I mean technical exercises. I mean carefully assessing your strengths and your areas of challenge. Repertoire studies, and repertoire studies that are beyond what you are currently singing. And music studies away from singing or your instrument of choice. So the study of music theory and the study of other vocalists and other musicians. I frequently talk about Pablo Casals. He's a cellist. We have much to learn from him as musicians. I was just talking about a trumpet player earlier in this live event. We have much to learn from these people. I have passed on opportunities in my past that I realize now, years later, were rather short-sighted of me. I was offered to go into a musical training program where I was not going to get a lesson with my principal instrument on a weekly basis. I would be rotated through like the orchestral sections and woodwind sections and things like that, rather than receiving lessons with Jim Forger, who's the person I had the opportunity to study with. And I realize now, many years later, what an amazing opportunity that was, and how short-sighted I was in refusing it. That's perhaps more than what you were asking for in that question. Oh, you're Carl. Okay. Gold Star Sheep. Okay, got it. Glad that the explanation was interesting. I'm really going off on tangents today. Natasha, my friend is learning piano, teaching you piano, but I think later on I will go to a piano teacher. Thanks for the answer. You're very welcome. At Stryker Kane, T. Phil, hello, this is my first live session. Welcome. T. Phil, I'm horribly behind. If you asked a question, I will try to get to it. Tanglison Tiaras, how can you get to have 4 octaves? I'm almost at 3, but I really want 4 because I heard that's the most ideal to be on Broadway. Gosh, well, most Broadway tunes I'm aware of there are exceptions to that, but focus on your airflow. That's going to keep you the healthiest and enable you to extend your range higher and higher. I'm afraid I have to go a little faster now because I'm woefully behind. But basically, that's going to be the secret sauce. You've got to have profoundly good engagement and support in order to open up those upper registers. T. Phil, Mandy at T. Phil, Greg. So essentially, I find that I run out of breath a lot. Also, people have told me to work on breath support. I try to get expansion in every direction when I breathe, but is there more to it than that? It's not just every direction. It's mostly the lateral expansion. It's not. If you go too far, you won't be able to adequately engage and suspend your subglottic pressure. You won't be able to get suspension if you have too much expansion. Running out of breath in the upper register is quite typical. We lose a lot of air. In the extremes of our range, you want to focus not so much on extending the length of phrase, but on achieving very, very seamless inhalations. So again, coming back to that notion of lateral expansion, the more you maintain that lateral expansion, the easier and faster your breaths will come. That means that you can do shorter phrases without anyone noticing that you're phrasing and getting a breath. This also, related to this too, is efficiency of tonal onset and release of your note. So if you have like a glottal release or a glottal attack, those denote phrase markings quite easily. But when you really have your expansion and engagement optimized, a consonant at the end of a word can offer you enough space to grab a very fast, efficient breath and get back into the phrase. And very few people will notice this. And especially when your tonal onsets are nice and efficient and they match timbre, that's the thing to focus on. So talking about breath support, yes, but we want to talk about maintaining your lateral expansion and consistency of engagement in the core body muscles, transverse abdominis, rectus abdominis, inner and outer oblique musculature, such that you have good, you're anticipating that engagement as you end a phrase and begin one in rapid succession. Mandy, Jeff, that book is actually sitting on my shelf and I've thumbed through it. Yes, indeed. Late to the party, but here, Mrs. Webster, welcome. Stryker at Altug, Mandy at Mrs. Webster, Kevin O'Brien. Do you have any tips to develop falsetto? Well, I believe, Kevin, you asked a question about controlling airflow and pitch. Let's stick to airflow and pitch first, and then we'll worry about falsetto later. You shouldn't be worrying about your falsetto range until you have really, really good alignment of vowels in the thyroarytenodominant series of your range of your voice, and as well are making a smooth transition through the scundopassaggio. At T. Phil from Stryker, Damn Olive, second question, how do I strengthen my head voice? My falsetto is developed well because I've been listening to Mariah Carey and Whitney all my life. My head voice is sad. Please help. Start with the how to sing high notes, parts 1, 2, and 3 that I did. And there's a lot of those videos. Those are all about connection between thyroid dominant and cricothyroid dominant singing chest voice and head voice, respectively. Natasha, wonderful, thank you. Natasha, yes. Mrs. Webster at Aaron Hughes, Mina3976, how often should I change my warm-up exercises? I don't know, I think my channel has 200 or something like that, broken down into ranges that's roughly 50 or 60 each. Have a good time. I don't know, pick 3 and rotate through them for a week and see how your progress is, and then change them, or not. In theory, you could really do the same warm-up over and over and over again, but just change your focus. Change what you're thinking about. That's another way to think about this too. Do them thinking about the vowel alignment. Do them thinking about your airflow. Do them thinking about articulation. Do them thinking about the release. Do them thinking about the area specifically in the zona de passaggio, below the secondo passaggio, or do them specifically thinking about the secondo passaggio in your technique as it approaches. How you think about them is just as important as what you're singing. T. Phil, there are so many layers to being a good singer. I love Jeff's videos. They have helped me greatly, especially singing through the break. Brilliant. Thank you. I'm very, very glad. Mrs. Webster's retracted that. Mandy, hey Jeff, really quickly, I've seen misunderstandings because of the naming of the notes. I call the A above middle C A4, for example, but I've seen people calling it A5. How do we address that? That's a very good question. I would just refer to them as you just did, like put middle C as the reference. There are some schools that change the numbers and number them differently. You're just going to have to find out who you're talking to, or refer to middle C, one octave above or below middle C, so on and so forth. I am feeling a bit goofy today. Yeah. Stryker Kane at Mandy. Stryker Kane, where dollar equals 4. Mrs. Webster, Jeff, you make me laugh. At Jedi practice, we have a saying, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. I like that. Nice that the learning I'm getting in martial arts transfers to music as well. Stay silly. I think there's no risk of me not being silly. I think that's going to happen. I like that. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. That's how they often talk about Tai Chi, which is this very fluid, like smooth martial art, as being one of like the most like profoundly like deadly martial arts when the person goes into fast motion or something like that. I don't know. But yeah. Brilliant. Altug at Mandy. Mrs. Webster at T. Phil. Stryker, here's the Jeff we've been waiting on to come back from abroad. Teach, sir, teach. Missed you, buddy. Thank you. Mandy at Stryker. Mandy, they're talking about F5 when they mean F4. It gets confusing. Agreed. You know, GarageBand does this too. Like, at least my version of GarageBand has C4 marked C3. And it took me like a while to put that together before I'm like, why is this all like in the wrong octave? And I still, like, when I'm talking to, I used GarageBand in my teaching, in my private teaching on Skype. And I still have to mentally say C3 is C4 when I'm getting ready to talk to somebody about the notes and things. Stryker at Mandy. Capone, Alanis Morissette is master of belting. That's cool. At Mandy. At Altug. At Capone. T. Phil, I'm a popular music singer. I sang with some classical singers recently, and the problem I usually have with my break did not happen. I'm taken back by this. What happened? You are maybe making a smooth transition. That's awesome. And that's what this is all about. I mean, that's really a lot. I mean, that's pretty much what everything on this channel is focused on, is giving you the tools to assess and surmount the technical requirements of a smooth transition through the secondo passaggio. That's what this is all about. T. Phil, I've been trying to combine the pop and classical during warm-up since a challenge. I can dig. Joe Cocker, rasp voice. It is not belting. No, it is a little bit of vocal fold, abduction, and the cover then vibrates ever so slightly. Frankie C. My boyfriend struggles with his high range due to a lot of phlegm. He can't shift. Any ideas? He can try a lot of water to try to thin that mucus out. He might see his doctor and ask if guaifenesin is okay. Guaifenesin is actually available over the counter, but he should really see his doctor to see if it is appropriate for him. It will thin the mucus or remove it entirely, and that may help him, but he ought to see his doctor. Stryker at Capone. Natasha, thanks for the explanation on opera singers. Yes, it was definitely more than what I asked, but it's awesome to know more than the question we asked. Very good. Guess what, Jeff? After I've been watching your videos and following you, Instructions as a New Singer, I ended up singing my daughter's first dance. That's awesome. Brava. That is so wonderful. That is so wonderful. congratulations on all of that, on your daughter's wedding and on you singing. It's so brilliant. How could you even sing the way you look tonight? I would have, I could not, I can't imagine. So in addition to like being, getting awesome as a singer, and congratulations on your daughter's wedding, you also have a mental fortitude beyond like anything I could conceive of. I would have just fallen to pieces. Awesome. I'm sure she was proud. Thank you, Karina. At Ara, we'll try to upload the video. Yes, please do upload the video. I would love to see that. Mandy, this was a good session today. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, everybody, for showing up. Thank you, T. Phil, for joining us today. I went back to pop singing. The break problem came back. Am I doing something wrong? You're probably... you have to split the difference a little bit in the vowel formation, particularly in the zona de passaggio, and the airflow. The thing is with pop vocals, we need to develop that neutral to lowered larynx position the same way that a classical vocalist would. But we have to kind of make a trade-off in that. We're not going to have quite as much openness because that operatic sound comes with the openness, and with that comes the shape of the vowels. So we're going to make a bit of a trade-off there to stay in the vernacular, to stay in the popular sounds. But we're going to trade some of the vernacular sound for that openness. Again, I'm reminded of this book that I wish I had got, which basically talked about the differences in genres more as a function of aperture at the larynx. Anyways, thank you, everybody. This was an awesome session. Hi, Jeff Noob. Love your videos. What is the highest note that would be healthy for a soprano to belt? Soprano vocalists, assuming a secondo passaggio at F5 to G5, somewhere in there, then, G5 to A5, generally speaking. But, you need to make that assessment with consideration for your instrument, for your voice. So you have to take those things into consideration. Yes, Mrs. Webster, I better record something rather than try to sing it live. Thank you, everyone. This was wonderful. I had so much fun. I hope you did too. Thank you for the questions. Have an awesome week. I will see you next week. The book we talked about was This Is Your Brain on Music. That's the book I've mentioned before. Remember Sequencer? I'll see you next Saturday. Take really good care of your voices. Enjoy singing. We'll see you then. And thank you, a little shout, Mandy, thank you for helping out with the moderation today. I truly appreciate it. Bye, everybody.